Hello everyone. This is Music Mukbang. I'm Zoe, and today we are talking to Nathan Hong of Hong Photography. Hello. Welcome. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Yes, I'm so excited. This is the first part in our Behind the Tour series where we're going to talk to people that I know that work behind the curtain on professional music tours and have encounters with artists on in their professional careers. So let's start off, and if you have a professional title, I would love to hear it and list some of the tours slash artists you've worked with recently.
Yeah, I don't know if I have like a specific title. I would just say I'm like tour photo and content
Okay.
person in sense. I recently just got off of a tour with Anise.
Okay.
Great group, great tour. That was technically my very first full-scale tour experience. I've
Mm-hmm.
done a few one-offs and a couple like mini tour runs where I'm like
Mm-hmm.
flying out to different locations with artists like IU, a lot of K-pop side like um, Woods, P1 Harmony, Card, Lusemble, Chu, whoever. On like
Awesome.
the more Western side, like Leve, shooting like Kid Laroi, Akon, A Boogie with a Hoodie. NLE Choppa, did like Jeremy Zucker.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I remember
Got
that.
to
That was
yeah,
so
like
sick.
Macklemore, Pink Sweats, you
Yeah.
name it. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. So very genre diverse for sure. So let's go back to the beginning. I want to hear the lore of how you got into doing photography and how you ultimately made this your job.
Yeah, so I would say kind of starts my junior year of college, which was about 3 years ago, I would say. Um, I basically I would like to say I got kind of lucky if I'm being totally honest with you. Because I had a few friends at the time who were musicians and were opening for larger artists and
Hmm.
already. And I kind of snuck my way in through just asking them. I was like,
Yeah.
I did photography kind of just like as like a side hobby for a little while. Um,
Hmm.
and in retrospect, I wasn't like the best, but I think I was pretty decent. I had a grasp of, how to make a photo look good and whatever it may be. And the very first show I shot was February of 2023, I believe it was,
Yeah.
for a KR&B artist named Junie.
Okay.
And my friends were part of this group called Soulfly that they were opening in Chicago. And
Ah.
I was the biggest Junie fan. So when I found out that they were opening, I was like, oh my God. Junie was like my top Spotify artist for like 3 years in a row
Wow.
for this. And I was like, shoot, can you guys get me like to take photos or whatever? And they're like, that would be great. And then turns out their guest list was already full. So I
Hmm.
just showed, but they're like, just show up. We'll try to sneak you in. And I just ended up showing up with a camera in my hand and they just like let me in. I don't
Hmm.
know how possible that is in modern day because I feel like security has definitely got more tight at venues now. But that was pretty much the start. I took the photos for that show, gave it to my friends, and they thought it was really good. So they ended up referring me to one of their artist friends who was opening for Gemini, which was like a couple weeks later or something. And
Hmm.
I ended up going back. And this time, so the first show that I shot with Junie, I started out very introverted. I'm like introverted by nature, so I hate talking to new people. It like gives me social anxiety. So I kind of just like sat there, hung out with the people I knew and took my photos and kind of went home.
Hmm.
Uh, but at the second time, I was like, oh shoot, if I want to keep doing this kind of thing, then it's important to talk to people. So I ended
Yeah.
up kind of pushing myself. You gotta have to be kind of a little active. I know there's like a lot of content creators and like photographers who start out that hate talking to new people and it's
Hmm.
pretty scary, but you kind of just have to force yourself and be uncomfortable. So I started talking to like some of the tour team and this was like early, 2023, mid 2023, where tours were basically like every week there was like a new tour announced or whatever because
Yeah.
you were just getting off of COVID, kind of
Hmm.
dying down, and a lot more artists were, more open to touring, and everyone was like trying to go to more live shows because they didn't get any of it for like 2 years. So that was probably the biggest. thing for me in terms of branching out my career in terms of like going into the music side of things.
Yeah.
And because, being able to shoot a show like consistently, even like once or twice a month, and then, connecting through those shows, seeing like other photographers who are also shooting that same tour in different locations and just like sleuthing on like Instagram and whatever to find those people and just
Yeah.
like, follow for a follow back, just connecting with them. How'd you get into music photography and just kind of like learning as you go. I think that
Mhm.
was the biggest thing for me. So like honestly, I have to say that I was very blessed to have met like good people who gave me opportunities and actually genuinely wanted to see me win because it's
Yeah.
hard to find those because there's so little opportunities and it's such high competition in terms of
Mhm.
like content creation in the music space, particularly for like professional working. Like
Yeah.
uh yeah, so I think I'm very grateful and I got lucky, but at the same time I think I had some level of like skill behind me that
Of course.
you meet those people, you get those opportunities, and if you do a really good job, then that's how you get invited back. So I think that's the biggest thing as well. So, but that's pretty
Yeah.
much how it started, and you know, here I am now, just a lot of shows later, and
Yes, no kidding. Well, I think it's crazy that you said that you were a bit of an introvert at the beginning because when I met you for the first time at the Kid Leroy show, I was like, "Oh, this guy is locked in. He's professional." I think you were vlogging too.
oh
So
yeah,
you
on
were
my
like very
360
you were
cam.
like ready. Yeah, with your 360 cam. So that's crazy just how much growth can happen in a few months and I think your story really speaks to that of like always being in contact with people, maintaining relationships, building relationships, and making sure that they're genuine and not just transactional too, because I feel like a lot of people run into that issue where like they kind of hit dead ends. But what you're saying, it worked out for you because of those genuine connections that you built. So totally that's amazing. That's so cool and so quick too. Like,
Right.
people, work their whole lives, and then you were able to make this happen for yourself, like you said you wanted to do it, and you did it.
Yeah.
Like, I think, when was the last show we shot together? I think it was NLE maybe, but you were saying, like, "When I graduate, like, I wanna do this full time," and I was like,
Right.
"Full send, like, do it," and you're doing it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We went to Oklahoma 2 nights ago, and they were turning the fuck up. I know that you guys can do it better though, right?
Much competition, like you mentioned. How do you convince artists specifically to trust you? Have you ever had to like make a case for an artist specifically? Or are you kind of like pitching when you're like presenting your work to new people? Is it a lot of like management teams and things like that?
Yeah, I guess at the very start it was a lot harder.
Yeah.
I think I had a bit of a head start, saying that, I was able to get into like pretty like larger scale shows kind of
Yeah.
off of that, like within like the first 2, 3 months. So I had a lot
Sure.
of names on my portfolio that were like,
Yes.
high trust the what's the word? High, yeah, high,
High
in
value, high,
yeah,
yeah,
high
high
value
trust.
names on my
Yeah, there you go.
portfolio.
Yeah.
So that made it a lot easier.
Hmm.
But I mean, for certain shows, like, if I wanted to shoot more of like a Western artist,
Yeah.
and put like a K-pop name on there, most of the time they, especially back in like 2023, they didn't
Yep.
really, it wouldn't really help me, right? So
Yes.
a lot of that, started, that's why I started getting in contact more with like, music publications and shooting
Yeah.
for like blogs and,
Hmm.
different news websites and whatever it may be, because that's was my access into larger shows. But having that portfolio early on definitely helped me get into those, like, have a publisher trust me to send me to larger scale shows. And
Yeah.
then at some point, you hit up artists, hitting up openers, which is always the best route in my opinion. If
Hmm.
you have kind of like a bit of a portfolio already,
Yeah.
but you're not enough that like you're able to convince like headlining artist managements or whatever it is,
Hmm.
but sliding into opener DMs and their managers, or
Yeah.
whatever it may be, that's kind of like the highest rate of success. And you just name drop everything. You're like, I've worked with this person, this person. Here's like, making a really nice portfolio website or whatever that you
Hmm.
can make for free on certain websites or pay like $15 to have like a decent like, subscription for an actual website builder like Squarespace or something, which is what I use, and then
Mhm.
just sending that to them. So I think that was probably my highest rate of success in terms of like growing my portfolio from the bottom up.
Yeah, totally, totally. And I know you spoke about having photographed different genres. With that, like obviously K-pop has a lot of movement and a lot of choreographed dance, whereas, someone like Leve, she's, playing her instrument and, how do those unique elements come into play and how do you adjust for that as you're shooting?
I think it comes with a bit of a feel, I guess, that you kind
Mhm.
of can't really plan for.
Yeah.
It's more so that, you shoot more shows that are like that
Yeah.
and you kind of get more used to it.
Mhm.
So even if it's like shooting, not like even a concert, but just general events, like, having shot like weddings or, like school dances type thing, like,
Right.
being able to know how to capture movement
Yeah,
at all,
totally.
just like having relative like camera technique and just knowing how to capture things in a certain way. I think that's like the biggest thing, but at the same time, it's just like you kind of have to do it for at least like one or two times to until you
For
kind of
sure.
get a real grasp of it. And then, once you kind of get the basics down of like, oh, I know how to do this. Let me try something new in a way to capture it. So, a lot of people started getting into like, camera filters or, like long exposure
Mhm.
stuff or whatever it may be. And it's kind of just like trial and error, to be honest with you. So,
Totally, totally. And I think there's certain things learn as you're going and they stick with you, right? Like you only have to endure the smoke and the first few songs to
right, right,
learn
right.
that that's something that you always have to be accounting for moving
That's for
forward. I
sure.
remember when that happened to me and I was like, "Oh no.
I
Forgot about
totally feel
that."
that. That and like red and magenta lighting
Yeah.
or whatever it is. Yeah, I feel
No
that.
kidding, and I feel like, there's only so much I mean, with talent like yours, there's definitely a lot that you can do in post, but I would imagine it's probably more helpful to anticipate as it's happening.
Right. Yeah, I would say you kind of get what you can. A lot of times you might not be the happiest with what you get.
Mhm.
If that's the case, I like a couple things like black and white always makes everything better, you know.
Ah, facts.
And otherwise, like, if there are strobes going off, then you're just spraying and praying, hoping to catch like
Yes,
the moment where the strobe goes off or something like that,
right?
or whatever it may be. But I feel like nowadays I've gotten so lazy. I just like if it doesn't look good, if I just like click my preset and it doesn't look good immediately, I just ditch it. You know? I just ditch it. I can't do it.
So so you're the type of person then that you're gonna take as many photos as humanly possible, especially since there's, like, a lot of times that 3-song limit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, especially for like the three-song thing, I'm definitely shooting as much as possible.
Oh,
If
yeah.
I give me the full show or if I have more access, then I
Hmm,
tend to be a little more intentional because I know I
okay.
have more time freedom.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
I and then at that point it's less so taking as many as I can, but trying to get as many different angles and variety of types of shots that I want.
Ah,
That's
yes.
like the goal at that point.
Yeah, that's huge. So, aside from the first 3 songs rule that typically comes into play when doing shows, is there any other quirky photo rules or things like that that comes to mind?
Not really. There are a lot of, apart from that, sometimes like for bigger shows or something like that, you might be limited even to not, have a pit, or you might, even smaller
True.
venues, you might not have a pit. And
Yeah.
then sometimes bigger venues, they'll put you in like, they'll be like, you can only take photos from the front of house console
Mhm.
area, which is like 3 miles away from the stage. So you have to bring
Yeah.
like a 400 millimeter camera if you want to see them clearly.
Yep.
At that point,
I
it's hard to get any sort of variety except for just like long shots or wide shots.
Yeah, no kidding. I had a show once and they shall remain unnamed, but they didn't tell us till we got there that we were shooting from like a literal like side hallway that was, like, halfway back from the auditorium, and I got there and I was like, "Cool. These are gonna be great."
I totally get you. I think it was another show that I was there. I will also remain them unnamed, even
Okay.
though, but it was like they told us that we had first three in the pit and
Yeah,
then rest of access from the rest of house for the rest of
right.
the show. We got there and then they told us there is no pit. And after the first three, we had to leave. So
Oh, okay.
we're
Cool.
like, oh, okay, cool.
Cool,
So
cool, cool. I just drove all this way for
yeah,
that?
yeah,
Sweet.
basically. So it was kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. So, you get what you can, and then you kind of learn to work with what you have. So,
Totally. And having you're currently on a little bit of a break with the tour that you're on now. Is there any tour misconceptions that you maybe had previously that you have realized that they're not maybe quite as they seem, or maybe things that were different um, on tour as you were experiencing?
the biggest thing is hygiene, low key.
Okay.
I think it's definitely the hardest thing to maintain
Oh,
on
yeah.
board
Yeah.
because particularly if you're on like well, it depends on what kind of tour you're on. So I mean, there's like, people do like sprinter vans,
Right.
you can have like a bandwagon tour or like a bus
Hmm.
tour. You could be having like a flying tour or whatever it is.
Hmm.
So I mean, depending on that, but for ours is like being a bus tour.
Yeah.
Um, we don't have Airbnbs, we don't get hotels really, because
Hmm.
our hotel is the bus. You sleep on the
Right.
bus, and like, you can't use the bathroom on the bus. No number two, no showers, only liquids in there. So
Okay.
basically the thing, but at the same time, so if you want to shower, you shower at the venue before you get on the bus. So, but
Oh,
a lot of the times our crew is like ten people, let's say, on
right.
average. And then, you have like, so that show ends at like 10:30 p.m.
Hmm.
And then, everyone right after the show has to load their gear up and like put it back onto the trailer or whatever it is,
Hmm.
which, takes maybe like 30 to 45 minutes. And then, the artist, for example, and then me most of the time, like we're going to the merch so that we can do like post-show meet and greets and stuff like that, which
Right.
also might take like an hour or so,
Yes.
depending on how many fans there are.
Hmm.
But the curfew for the venue is probably at like 12:30.
Uh-huh.
You have one shower and one bathroom. So it's like everybody, like 10 to 12 people have to be, use a bathroom, showered up and whatever and changed and on back on the bus within like 30 minutes. So it's
You're
like
s
everyone's like in and out, like you get like 3 minutes to shower and stuff, and then you're good and you have to be out. Otherwise,
Oh
you're stuck.
my
And so
gosh.
it is a
That
bit like hectic, usually a lot like post-show stuff,
yeah.
where it's like we finish the meet and greet and I realize it's like, oh, we have like 15 minutes
So
to,
you're
and then
elbowing
we have
people out
like
of the way.
and then we have like five people left to take showers, and then we have like 15 minutes left, and then we're all like freaking out. We're just like
You're, like,
go
elbowing each
just
other,
like
you're like, "You showered last night. I get to
no,
shower."
literally though. I mean, luckily some people were like, I showered in the morning and then didn't
Yeah.
sweat during the show somehow, and then
Uh-huh.
don't need a shower. But like at the same time, it's like that's probably the most stressful part of the tour,
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
outside of
that's
like,
I was
you
gonna
know,
say, you're stressing me out just hearing that.
yeah.
That's
So
nuts.
trying to like maintain your hygiene, you gotta have you try to make as little as sacrifices as you can, but sometimes you might have to make a sacrifice every now and again.
Yeah.
But that, and then I never really expected the editing timeline to be like,
Okay.
well, I mean, I kind of knew, but at the
Yeah.
same time, a lot of the times that I'm doing stuff is like for one-off shows or even like a couple shows here and there. It's like
Right.
usually I have like a couple days in between,
Yeah.
and I mainly do photos, so I'm not really doing videos. So I can
Yeah.
get out my whole gallery, you know, within like a couple hours.
Mhm.
So that's never really been an issue. But then come this tour where I'm doing both photo and video primarily for like social content,
Yeah.
I'm more or less like expected to put out like at least a video or two like a day for the
Okay.
reason of posting.
Yeah.
And like that alongside photo, and then, the hygiene stuff, and your day ends at like midnight, and then you have to get food after the show because you haven't eaten since like 5 p.m.
Mhm.
And then so you get food, and by the time you get back, it's maybe like 2:30
Yeah.
a.m. And then you have another show the next morning that you start loading at like 11 a.m., but you still haven't gotten your photos out or any of the videos out, and you need to have videos out by the next day afternoon. So it's
Mhm.
like, maybe I slept like 4 hours every night, and I'm still like extremely behind on stuff. Because
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like, there's like a balance, but you want to enjoy the tour and
Mhm.
have fun. I think that's a big thing.
Mhm.
But at the same time, getting all your work done as
Right.
efficiently as you can. But sometimes you may not have that all the
Mhm.
time, so you can't, maybe a couple days in a row or a week, like where you're basically doing nothing but working 24/7.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest thing, is just like the workflow is definitely a
Yeah.
lot more ruling than I expected it to be. Um, but I
Sure.
think you get used to it at some point. So
I was just about to ask, so over time, would you say you're able to, like, establish a decent routine then? Or
more or less,
because it's a different venue each night, will it always kinda be a little bit
it is
new?
a bit different. So for like
Yeah.
this tour, for example, I was also working with like lighting techs and lighting
Okay.
like LDs and stuff. So,
Yeah.
I was making sure that the lighting looked as similar and like as, what we're usually used to every
Consistent,
single
yeah.
time, but there are definitely a lot of limitations based on the venues
Right.
because everyone's systems are different. All the LDs have different attitudes and towards, what they want to do and what they don't want to do. And,
Mhm.
so it's definitely like a bit of a, balancing act where it's like, you know, you kind of get used to it at some point. It's also, in terms of the content side, like, getting to know the artist as well and like how they want things done. So a lot
Right?
of the time, like even like the first half of this tour that I was on was mainly just me figuring out how does he like things edited, how does he like things cut up,
Yeah.
what's the pacing like in most of his content that he wants, stuff like that, and like what
Mhm.
style does he want, how does he want me to shoot it, or whatever it may be. And then, once you kind of get that understanding, don't have to ask as many questions every time I edit something.
Right.
And, never as smaller revision requests every single time. So it kind of,
Totally.
yeah, you kind of work into a flow for sure.
Gotcha. And with all those photos and videos that you're processing each day pretty much, what sorts of, storage and editing software do you use while you're on tour?
I'm an Adobe guy,
Okay.
so Lightroom for photo,
Mhm.
sometimes Photoshop if I need it, and then pretty much Premiere Pro for all my video editing.
Okay.
I just don't like deviating. Also, because I still use my university stuff, so like I still get it for free. So I'm not gonna move to anything else until that runs out.
Fair. Fair. You gotta take advantage of that license while you
Exactly.
got it.
In terms
Yeah.
of like storage, I have a ton of SD cards.
Mhm.
Um, I would say, I don't think I have it on me right now, but like the Extreme Disc, SanDisk Extreme Pros or whatever it is,
Okay. Yeah.
like I have like five 256 gigs like SD cards, making
Uh-huh.
sure the read speed is 300 per second.
Ooh, okay.
Because, if I'm shooting a lot or if I'm shooting like 4K footage, well, 4K doesn't really matter, but if I'm shooting a lot of photos, make sure that it doesn't like buffer every time I'm like bursting.
Sure.
And, having like, these, like I literally have this like SanDisk hard drive. It's like a 4 terabyte hard
Yeah.
drive that I just pretty much put all my life's work on, and then I have one other backup.
Okay.
Pretty much it. I mean, that's in terms of storage, that's all I need, and then I just
Yeah.
clear it every single day.
I learned a very hard lesson about solid state versus non-solid state drives
Oh
this
yeah.
year.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't I don't wanna talk about it, I'm a little scarred.
I mean, the normal ones are definitely more cost effective,
Yeah.
but not a lot of time effectiveness, I will say. But
Yeah, and not drop effective either,
that is true. That's
so, if your, hard drive is making a noise, that's usually not a good thing.
that's true.
Um, so I'm curious about your gear on tour, since you said that you're doing photo and video this
Mhm.
time. What's your go-to, stuff in your bag or just with you?
So I'd say the main things. are my camera body. I have two Sony A7 IVs.
Okay.
I had a third one that was the artist that I was
Mhm.
using for other like what we call front of house clips is basically just like we set it up on a tripod and just have it recording from like across the stage, like
Okay.
the stage, the whole show. But other than that, my two A7 IVs. In terms of lenses, I have my Tamron 28 to 75
Mhm.
f2.8, which is basically what I use for like my video setup most of the time. In terms of my photo setup, I just had a Sony G Master 14 millimeter 1.8. That was like my go-to photo, but I was also using photo for my video camera,
Mhm.
because I have a bit of like a um, run and gun setup going. And then sometimes if I need it, I didn't use it this tour at all, but a Tamron 70 to 180 f2.8. That one's like, if I'm back and, for the shows that I'm far away from the stage, that's what I'll use.
Yeah.
Also, a cube light. That's so important, I feel like.
Cube
I mean,
light.
because I was doing like VIP photos
Mhm.
and even for like post-show meet and greet,
Yeah.
having like I have like I think it's the one by Small Rig. It's like
Okay.
a just like a box light with like a diffuser on in front of it.
Nice. Yeah,
And
I'm
I
sure
either
that
I'll mount it onto my video camera setup,
yeah.
or I'll just like hold it straight up in my hand. But that's low key super goated. Also, having a flash.
Mm.
I broke my first flash in LA.
Oh,
So I got a new flash in the middle of tour. I
okay.
don't even remember what it's called. I think it's like some Godox V5 or something like that. I don't even know.
All right.
Um, but that's pretty much it. I would say that's pretty much the whole setup. And then like a Rode shotgun mic.
Nice.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure the fans at the meet and greets greatly appreciate the consideration and the lighting.
Oh
You
yeah.
get that good
They, I
Instagram
was
pic.
I was definitely getting my flowers in terms of like people being like clutch up for the light guy or
Yeah.
whatever. Because I'm literally holding this thing up like this
Yeah, yeah.
an hour and a half straight. And I'm like, bro, I'm telling you, like my shoulders or whatever,
Yeah.
they're
That's awesome.
top tier condition right now. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So since this is your job and you have different artists that you work with and, some one-off shows, some other things like that. When you establish a contract for your photography, do you have something that's pretty standard or does it vary from artist slash like length of time spent, that sort of thing?
Most of the time in terms of like contracts and stuff, I don't really, unless it's more like portraiture, like wedding clients or something
Yeah.
like that, I'm not really talking too much about usage rights. I
Okay.
mean, it's more so assume that I'm just like giving you the photos. I mean, you're
Right.
hiring me to, and then like most of the time for like music stuff, it's like they hire me for my time.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's more of like a courtesy thing for myself and, making sure that they're okay with the photos that I
Right.
post or whatever it may be. But most of the time,
Totally.
I've never really talked about that. It's more so important in my opinion if like, I'm doing like a product shoot or, like a brand deal type thing or
Right.
like wedding photos or like editorials or something like that.
Yeah.
That's when I talk a little more about like, making sure that I give them usage rights in my contract,
Mhm.
and protecting myself for also using it for my own portfolio and stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I've never really talked about that as much. It's more so just like pay me for this show or this tour, and then I'll just whatever content you need, I'm there.
Yeah,
More so
totally.
about what kind of content you're delivering and like the
Yeah.
deliverables you're providing. So it's like, oh, if every show we want like a deliverable of like 20 to 30 edited photos
Mhm.
and maybe like 3 to 5 short form videos or something like that. That's kind of something that you would talk more about if you're on like tour or, working with like a musician, stuff like that, and then more of like a timetable. So, for example, like a lot of K-pop might be like, we need these photos within 2 hours of the show or
Okay.
something, show ending or something like that, and we need
Sure.
them either edited or unedited. Can you shoot them in high quality JPEGs instead of RAWs or something like
Mhm.
that?
Mhm.
Whatever it may be. So that's definitely something more common, I guess.
Okay. And so when you're contracted by the artist or the label, do those photos, the ownership, do they still remain to you, or have you ever been in a situation where it's like they kind of like own that now? Like that's their like what's the legality-ish, so to speak, with that?
I can't really speak on like legality. I'm not like a lawyer or anything. Me personally,
Not a
it's
lawyer.
so it's more so depending on how they use it, I would say.
Okay.
Because if they're using it more for like advertising purposes, for example, if they use it like as like a cover art for one of their songs releases or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's I think that's probably more where it comes into play. If they're
Sure.
just posting on an Instagram or something, I mean
Mhm.
that's kind of assumed, or if
Yeah,
they're
that's
putting it on their website or something, that's fine as well. But for the most part, it depends on the contract, also how much you care about it, I guess.
sure. Okay, that's
If
true.
you're
Yeah. Because I would imagine there's probably some photographers that get very like stickler about it and sort
right.
of thing. So, and others that may be a little bit more lax. So that's a very good point. I guess there's probably a spectrum there for
Yeah,
sure.
because in those situations, I also really think more about like the relational aspect about it. Because
Yeah.
it's like, if you're gonna be a butt cheek about like, oh, like I should get paid if you want to use this on your website, or you should pay me more, or like, we never, signed this contract or whatever it is, but
Yeah.
then you kind of like burn a bridge in a sense where it's like that
Sure.
person's like you're kind of annoying to work with, and it's like
Yeah.
you're gonna like be that way every time, I post a photo or something, then
Yeah.
it's like I don't want to work with you again.
Sure.
So I think for me it's more so, a lot of the artists that I work with, I end up being more or less like friends with, right?
Sure. Yeah.
For the most part, or at least that's the hope for sure.
Yeah.
And if I want to do that, then I'm also supporting you,
Mm-hmm.
because if I'm working with you and I chose to work with you and you want to work with me, then at that point it's like, I want to make you good content, because if you grow, then I grow too, right? So it's
Yeah.
like it's kind of like a mutual beneficial relationship, where it's like, you don't want to be that guy who's always asking for more money, you
Of
know,
course.
because then, depending on who the artist is, like they'll they'll come back for you if you're a good person. So I feel like
Yeah,
that.
and I feel like it's such a interesting like line to be dancing on because one, like
Yeah,
you obviously want to protect yourself and your work and things like that. But then, like you said, like relationships are very important in this industry and your name out there and stuff too. So I totally, totally hear you there. It's kind of like a case by case
for sure.
thing. So let's talk about watermarks with photos. Sometimes you see people watermarking their photos, and obviously, like, the big photo companies and stuff, like, if there's a
Right.
red carpet event, those are watermarked. What is your opinion on it for like your own personal work and what comes into play there?
For my personal work, I'm not a fan of it.
Hmm.
I just like, if someone reposts it and credits me, I'm not too mad about it.
Of course,
Like
yeah.
they repost it and don't credit me, then I might have some issues with it,
Hmm.
but for like the most part, like, I don't really watermark anything. I did for like maybe like 2 weeks, and I was like, low key, the watermark looks weird on my photos, and like if I'm gonna post it, I'd rather just it be like the full scale quality of like what
Sure.
it is.
Yeah.
Um, so personally, I'm not like a huge fan. I think it's also kind of ties into like it can tie into like that point of like I was making before about the stickler about rights
Hmm.
usage and whatever. It's like, not that that's wrong, right?
Right.
You gotta protect yourself to some degree, but at the same time, it's almost like if you're not like you work, if it's not for like a big company or whatever,
Yeah.
then in my opinion, there's not really a point for
Sure.
it. So
Okay.
yeah, I don't
So
know.
no, I that totally makes sense, and I think, like you said, you kind of have to just see what the vibes are
Yeah.
and see like what the situation is. So for you and your brand, how do you protect your photos and yourself as a brand? Do you have an LLC?
I mean, for me, it's more so just archival. I
Okay.
mean, for me, like all my stuff is pretty much public. So,
Okay.
if someone reposts it, I can just be like, well, I have the actual like
The
original
real.
file. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's like I
Yeah.
have all this stuff on a hard drive that, there's no way you could have gotten unless you have my hard drive. You
Sure.
know, at that same point, it's like, but at the same time, it's like, unless it's like a brand thing,
Hmm.
which is, more then becomes that brand's problem, less so
Right.
mine, you
Right.
know, unless I'm like selling prints or something.
Right.
Um, but I mean, I don't really do that. That's not a primary stream of income for myself.
Okay.
But I've never really had a reason to be too concerned about it, in my like 3 years of doing this professionally. Like I've never
Yeah.
had any issues.
Yeah, that's
Um,
good.
so I mean, good thing for me, but hopefully probably won't have hopefully I don't have to think about it later either. But
No, hopefully not. Hopefully it
yeah.
keeps everything
Yeah, I
um
more so consider like the LLC and stuff like that. That's more of like a business
yeah.
tax ability side and stuff like that.
Okay.
So that's more so what I think about. But
Yeah.
I would say S corps are greater than LLCs in my opinion.
Oh, okay.
Just
Yeah.
for the additional tax benefit.
Okay.
So instead of like self-employment tax, you're basically paying yourself as an employee.
Hmm.
I don't know the huge, again, I'm not like a
All good.
I switched out of accountancy, so I don't know too much about this, but my dad is a tax guy, so he's
Okay.
essentially you pay less tax if as an S corp opposed to an LLC,
Okay.
but you have like a little more paperwork essentially, which is like the
Okay.
trade-off. But
Yeah, I remember you explaining this to me like before a show, and it was like super helpful
yeah,
because it's true. Like when you read it online, you're like they sound like the same thing, but the
right.
way you explained it like makes sense, and also the like liability aspect of like when it's an LLC versus a sole proprietorship and like who they can sue and like all
Yeah,
that stuff, which like we don't need to get into, but it's interesting.
right, right, right.
How does your desire to capture a specific artist that you like or someone who's really popular affect your decision to work with them? And on the flip side, if you're doing a show or you're working with an artist and you realize it's not quite what you thought it would be, how do you find the motivation to still like produce good work?
I think I think a lot about things in terms of like almost like an investment, I
Okay.
guess. So a
Yeah.
lot of the times, like working with larger artists, regardless if I like their music or not,
Hmm.
it's more so of like what can it provide me,
Yeah.
especially early on. Every like solid like artist that I can get a show pass for, like a photo pass for, is
Yeah.
always just like building portfolio and building my way up in
Hmm.
terms of like, even if I'm not getting paid for this,
Right.
like I'm just gonna talk to every single person that I see there,
Yeah.
and that might lead to another job or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
And at the same time, it's like working with, smaller or even like larger or, medium scale artists. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, you're kind of banking on growth as well.
Hmm.
Again, kind of based on that relational aspect. I've
Right.
seen a lot of artists that I've worked with that were like, had less than, like around like 10K followers.
Hmm.
Uh, at one point when I worked with them, and then check in another year later and they have like 200,000
Yeah.
followers or something. And it's like, you kind of have that in, or, it even looks, even if you don't work with them again, it just looks better on your portfolio that you had
Of
them before.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, stuff like that where it kind of sounds a little more transactional in terms of, how you view it. But at the same time, it's like, that's my motivation for, you know, doing good work and being efficient with
Of
it,
course.
especially when I was first starting out. That's, my thought process for shooting larger and larger shows was like, I'm gonna be the very first person to get these photos out from the show,
Yes.
get more attention on, whatever I posted, from whether it be from the artist or from their team or from people who are fans. And
Yeah.
then, on the flip side, it's like if they like what I did and then I got it out fast, then they're more likely to, maybe book me again in the future, whether it's
Of
paid or
course.
not. It's just like a growth opportunity for me and even potentially for that other person. So, which
Yeah.
can ultimately benefit everybody.
Well, and the proof is in your socials as well too. You are the quickest quickest around these parts at
Like
editing post show. Like I'll have just gotten home from like a show that you were also at, and I open up Instagram and like, what the heck? How did he do this? I swear he was editing while he was driving. Like what even? I don't know
I
how you
literally
do
sprint home as fast as I can,
it. Yeah.
and then I call all my photos and edit them within like 2 hours, and they're out.
Insane,
Yeah,
insanity. So let's get into a little bit of like tour slash photo speed round here.
word.
Um, so favorite venue or state that you have photographed in?
Ooh, low key, Washington D.C. Capital One Arena.
Ooh, okay.
Amazing lighting, great, just like venue overall, to be honest with you.
Okay. Nice. Dream tour, past or future to work on? Like anything, any historical tours or anything like that that you could pick, what would you choose?
For my own reasons, I would love to go on a tour with, I feel it's too easy to say like BTS because
Oh,
I grew
yeah.
up on like K-pop and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
IU is also a big bucket list item.
That's
And,
awesome.
J Park would be one that I'd love to go on.
Ooh,
And even like twice,
okay.
that'd be great. Just like,
Yeah, that'd be sick. So, for a dream artist to photograph, would you say IU is the one, or do you have another one that would
I mean, BTS, J Park,
okay,
twice.
all
I mean,
those.
like, for this, I don't know. I think those are probably the most like sentimental in terms of like I
Yeah.
actually listened to them growing up and
Mhm.
whatever.
Of course. And we talked a little bit about the negative side of touring, but what is the best part of touring?
Um, I think it's case by case a lot of the times,
Mhm.
but at the same time, it's like, just being able to be so close with like, the touring crew or whatever it may be. Like
Yeah,
you make a lot of friends. And I mean,
that's so nice.
you kind of, which is ideal, but it doesn't happen all the time where you
Mhm.
might have some like discourse between people on the crew or whatever it may be. But
Yeah.
I mean, for the I guess like one and a couple here and there that I've experienced that I've met a lot of great people and made a lot of great friends. So I think that's the biggest thing for me is just like having good people around me for being on the road and whatever it may be.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome. And while you're on tour, what or just, doing concert photos, what is the best road or backstage or green room food?
green room food. Ooh, ooh.
Or even
Mm.
like snacks that you're grabbing before or after a show?
I mean, I always need my coffee.
Okay.
Every single day I was religious about how I went and got my coffee.
Nice.
Um, dang, that's a good question. Ugh, I don't know. I don't know. We had a lot of tacos,
Okay.
a lot of freaking tacos on this tour because we were with a lot of like our crew is primarily Latinos. So
Ah,
a lot of tacos and a lot of fajitas. So,
nice. Oh,
and I
so good.
never really ate a lot of Mexican food before, but
Nice.
after touring, we probably had it like every other day. And I was
So
like, low key is paying.
So coming off of it, are you like, "Oh, okay, I'm sick of it now then?" Or are you like, "I could eat, like, Mexican food
Well,
all the
I could
time?"
definitely eat it more because
Uh-huh.
now I know what to order.
Oh,
I was
true.
never really explorative when I went like and got
Yeah.
Mexican food, but now it's more so that like I'm a little more well versed in terms of, you know, I I don't think I've had a fajita before tour,
Mm,
except for
okay.
maybe like one time, who knows? But like,
Yeah. So new food, new friends.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What's your go-to, taco or fajita order now then?
A quesadilla taco
Ooh,
always slaps.
yes.
Um, in terms of fajitas, I mean, just like beef fajitas, beef and
Nice.
chicken.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sweet.
can't go wrong.
Of course. And then what is a craziest tour story, fan encounter, or event that you witnessed that you can legally share in this context?
Tour story. I mean, I think the craziest tour stories are always just like guests that come.
Yeah.
Like this past this tour, like Anise was, I mean, he's very well tapped in
Hmm.
and would bring a lot of guests out. So even like getting to meet those people like Pink Sweats, Macklemore coming out, like
Yeah.
Aniko, JP Sachs, even
Hmm.
like, you know, Zoran Mamdani, which is like the new mayoral candidate in New York. And like, like Yofuzi too, like
Uh-huh.
Anwar, a lot of big social media personalities and whatever it may
Sure.
be. Though, like getting to meet those people and just like being in same rooms with them is pretty
Right.
an interesting experience. So
Yeah, for sure.
otherwise, like, I don't know. Seeing a lot of fans like, show up to multiple shows flying out.
Oh yeah.
Never really think about it, but like people who are so dedicated
Yeah.
to like listening to the artist or, whatever, supporting them in that way where they're showing up to like
Hmm.
8 to 10 different shows on the same tour. And it's crazy. So
Yeah. No, for sure. And then finally, what are some recommendations or advice you have for people looking to get into a career in photography or maybe just in the music industry in general?
I would say music industry specifically, relationships are for sure everything.
Yeah.
So, I've seen a lot of people who get so caught up in the money, which is important, right?
Hmm.
But, they get so caught up in the money like so early on
Mm,
where, they've barely have a portfolio and they're getting super upset at an artist who's like not willing to pay them like $100 to shoot
right.
their show, which is you know, to some degree, like, yeah, you have to worry about it, but particularly if you want to like really get into the industry,
Hmm.
being a person willing to, always just show up and do good work just for the vibes and for the love of the game,
Yeah.
that's always what people want to see. And a lot of artists and a lot of teams want to see from like content creators. So I think that's the biggest thing. And also just, you know, willing to put in like invest in yourself in terms of opportunities. Like for example, like during college, I would like, you know, go to class. I would purposely schedule my classes Monday and Wednesday.
Hmm.
I'd fly out Wednesday afternoon,
Hmm.
like to go to LA, to go to New York, to go to Toronto, to go to wherever it may be. And I would like, like a couple days before I fly out, I'm just mad texting every single creator, every artist, every whatever it may be,
Yeah.
like in those cities, to be like, oh, are you down to do a shoot, and maybe I'm like shooting one project a day while I'm there,
Right.
and like the rest of my weekend is just spent editing it, and then I come back to class, and then getting my work done like last minute, like 2 hours before they're all due, and just basically just rinse and repeat that.
Hmm.
A lot of the times that's kind of like how you build connections in different places. And outside of social media, like being face to face with people is so important, I feel like nowadays,
Yeah.
particularly if you want to be top of mind for that person, if you want to build actual genuine relationships,
Hmm.
being able to meet them is so important. So that was like a big priority for me. So even if you get a follow back from like a big creator, a big artist,
Hmm.
make the time to like go out to where they are or whatever,
Yeah.
and you know, ask them if they want to do a shoot, just for the fun of it, because you're there.
Yeah.
And that has low key opened a lot of doors for me in the long run because it's like those people will always invite you back and will always be open for another project or something like that whenever you're asking.
Yeah.
Um, what else? Yeah, I feel like the relationships and like more so just like being willing to eat some costs every now and again is always
Sure.
super important.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, and I just kind of supplemented a lot of it because like music does not have a lot of money in it unless you're like, you're going on tour, relatively consistently, or you're getting booked out for like music videos or something like that all the
Hmm.
time. So, being willing and able to kind of supplement yourself in terms of, what I was doing was I was shooting other events, I was shooting grad portraits, I was doing weddings in my off seasons or in my off days,
Sure.
where it's like, and then that money feeds back into the travel that I'm going to meet other artists, meet other creators or whatever to shoot
Yeah.
those more for fun projects,
Right.
which can hopefully build into like more long-term relationships and more of that, tour work and whatever it may be in the long run. So
Awesome. Yeah, having that diversity is like super important, and like it's clear that that's helped you be able to do like the things specifically that you want to focus on at any given time. So, thank you so much for being on Music Mukbang. Where can everyone find your work and where can everyone follow you?
pretty much Instagram is my home base for most of my stuff. You can find me at Nathan_Hong with a K at the end.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Nathan. It was so good getting to hear about all your experiences. This was lovely, and this was the first episode of the Behind the Tour series with Music Mukbang. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yay!